Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sarah Coleman and I work at TWC Group. I'm here today to share some findings from a recent project that we conducted in collaboration with the FWD. Our objective was to create a solid evidence base to determine whether independent convenience retail has remained competitive through the current price inflation and whether margins are being unfairly squeezed compared to other channels. So let me start by explaining what we did. The project had 4 elements to it. Firstly, a price audit to determine base pricing in independent convenience versus multiple convenience and supermarkets. We wanted to understand the level of price increases and the price differential between these sub-channels. We spoke to wholesalers to determine the increases that they were seeing in the cost of doing business and to understand whether shared margin on PMPs had changed with price increases. We conducted a large number of interviews with independent and symbol retailers to understand their challenges and their competitive environment. And lastly, we did some consumer research to understand who is the independent convenience shopper and their attitudes towards price mark packs. So let's start with the price audit, which we conducted to compare base prices in Indies versus Tesco Express and Tesco supermarkets. We recognise that ranges differ significantly across these store formats, so we very carefully identified more than 70 products that are sold in all 3 in order to make a genuine like-for-like comparison. And what we found was that prices have risen across the board, but more so at the multiples. The price audit confirmed the long-established differential between multiple convenience and supermarkets, which we know to be up to 10%, reflecting the accepted higher cost to serve of convenience stores versus large supermarkets. We can see this in the left-hand side of this chart. It's fallen slightly to 8.3%. Because prices have risen more at the multiples, the price differential versus the independents is falling. And at the time we audited in January this year, it was almost non-existent between Tesco Express and the independents, which is that 0.1% figure that you can see on the right-hand side of this chart. While the base consumer prices for a basket of goods sold in a multiple convenience store and an independent convenience store were on par at the time of our last audit in January, the multiples are using their loyalty programs to offer shoppers very deep discounts. At the time of the audit in January, over 40% of products in our audited basket of goods were included in a Tesco Club Card promotion, and even more were in Club Card promotions within Tesco's main estate stores. Now, whilst the number of lines on promotion was higher in Tesco supermarkets, the depth of discount offered in Tesco Express was significantly higher, with up to 30% money off discount. This depth of discount has increased substantially versus our previous audit in November 2021, at which point it was 21% in Express stores and 16% in main estate. This level of discounting makes it very hard for independent convenience stores to compete with the multiples on price. We also need to consider the issue of the shared margin in independent convenience, with both the wholesaler and the retailer needing a fair margin. In June 2022, wholesalers reported an average increase of 13% in the cost of doing business, so costs such as wages, national insurance, utilities, business insurance, petrol and diesel, and business rates. This is likely now to be even greater as many cost price increases were pushed back or delayed until 2023. Plus, there will be a natural lag as the old packs, especially PMPs, sell through. And retailers will of course be facing similar cost increases. We asked wholesalers where PMP has increased, what has been the impact on shared margin? We're delighted to report that the wholesalers highlighted that 23% of products have increased margin, which is great. Unfortunately, 73% have been maintained and a small handful have even decreased, with the cost of doing business going up. Wholesalers and retailers need this reflected in their shared margin. Independent retailers are not resting on their laurels. They're fighting for their share of local trade and pulling a number of levers to do this, including their core strengths of superior customer service and supporting local charities and initiatives. Many are also trying to compete on price to some extent, whether that's by offering more cheaper products, more own labels, or price matching versus the competition. Let's take a step back a moment and recognise the breadth of outlets included within the convenience channel, which we've illustrated here as a continuum with increasing discipline as you move to the right-hand side. On the right, we have retailers operating with high levels of discipline, a tight range, and operating under widely recognised fascias. Meanwhile, on the very left, there are the unaffiliated retailers, which generally are less disciplined and have a less tightly defined range. Both have their place in the community, and the impact of the deep discounting from Tesco that we identified just now impacts everyone, albeit in different ways. The challenge for those on the left-hand side is ensuring that they understand the power of promotions to drive consumer spending. We have a hypothesis at TWC that retailers believe the PMP is the promoted price. Base pricing in our audit shows that PMPs are working to create a parity on price. Encouraging tactical promotion activity as well could be a big win for the retailers who are not already doing this. Promotions can encourage a number of behaviours, from driving footfall, increasing spend once shoppers are in store, trialling categories that they didn't intend to purchase, and encouraging trade up. The biggest emerging threat for branded suppliers appears to be the growth of own label, and an effective promotional strategy can be to trade consumers up to better and best tiers out of own label. Suppliers could be working with wholesalers to enable a strategy to support this. And of course, there needs to be sufficient shared margin for both the retailer and the wholesaler, especially in light of the rising cost of doing business, which we have already acknowledged to be at least 13%. Our research evidences who is shopping in the independent convenience channel, and it is not necessarily driven by cheapest on display. In 3 separate studies, we've confirmed that the shopper is not lower affluence, and therefore these stores do not need to be the cheapest all of the time. Indeed, the most cash-strapped shoppers may well be avoiding the convenience channel altogether in favour of the discounters. We also know that household shopping at these stores are likely to be time-pressed. We believe there must be a strong EDLP offer to drive loyalty and encourage shoppers to visit habitually. This must provide enough margin on an ongoing basis to be sustainable. We don't need a race to the bottom, we need the channel to be smart and use promotions tactically. All our research to date evidences that both wholesalers and retailers love PMPs, and so do consumers. They build confidence and drive loyalty, and they are here to stay. But the sector doesn't have to be as cheap as chips. It needs to be competitive, facilitated by smart promotions with clear objectives. And it has to be sustainable, providing enough margin to cover the rising costs of doing business. Thank you for listening. Here you have my contact details together with my colleagues Tanya and Tom. Do get in touch if you've got any questions about the research that I've shared, or indeed if you want to understand your indies and symbol shopper better. Thanks so much, and goodbye from me.